In this week's episode, I take a trip down memory lane to a time when the NSX had far fewer rock chips on the front while giving the new suspension a shakedown through the mountains of Japan. Now that I've finally found some time to, one, get her hair cut, and two, take this car with the new suspension out on some curvy roads to see exactly just how well it performs. And that's exactly what I plan to do today. So I'm going over some kind of bumpy roads here in Japan, mountain roads. I'm really, just enjoying the drive, and I'm doing it on the new suspension, first time yet. I still haven't really adjusted it too much from the installation video that you just saw. So very excited about this. Gonna see how it does. Gonna, just throw it around a little and see what's going on. Under the speed limit, of course, and of course, within all the laws and everything else. So I gotta, preface that with an asterisk. So, yeah. But yeah, we're driving through the mountains of Japan, which is great in my NSX. Always a good time, having a good time. While I'm doing that, one thing I will say is that a lot of people have been asking me, what's with the car, what's been done to the car, tell me about the car. And I'd be happy to do that while I'm just driving around. And so my car is a 92 NSX that I purchased almost 16 years ago now. And gosh, time flies. I bought it in 09, and I was really excited about it, or right at the end of 08, 09, and or beginning of 09. I bought it at the beginning of 09 and paid as much as maybe a new Civic at the time for it. So prices were at an all-time low. I had sold my SW20 hardtop turbo car in order to finance this. I had most of it cash and the rest was financed. I was really excited about it and super happy. I mean, the car had virtually no miles on it at the time that I bought it. It had literally, when I walked out of the super shady exotic used car dealer, it had 69,999.9 miles and clicked over 70 right as I was leaving. So that was pretty cool. I enjoyed that, and that was a fun, moment in my life, and one that I didn't really think much of at the time, but it really shaped a huge portion of it from then on. I mean, I had no idea how influential this car was going to be to me in my life when I bought it, and that's something that really surprised me. I've made tons of friends, I've gone crazy places, I've done all sorts of things that I have to really attribute to owning the NSX. One interesting caveat or footnote to my life is that I was one of the very early employees over at Singer Vehicle Design. I was actually their 6th ever employee, and I helped design from the first prototype 964 car till around car 10, 8 to 10-ish, I can't remember exactly. But one of the things that I remember vividly from my job interview with Rob, the owner, and another person that still works there is, They asked me about my resume, my CV, which had other things going on in it, and was by itself, I felt good enough to do what they wanted me to do. But then they were like, why are you into cars? What do you like? What do you drive? And I mentioned I drove an NSX, and I had bought mine, and it was completely 100% stock except for wheels. And by the time I had taken this interview, I had actually put original wheels back on it because the 1819s that were on it, the OZ Ultra Legeras, in my opinion, just were too big, too bulky, too heavy, and at the time I wasn't making a lot of money, and I wanted to afford really good rubber, so I bought an OE set of wheels, and so it had the original wheels with the hubcaps and everything, so Fat Fives. And Rob and Maz at the time, they came through and they looked and they loved it, and they just were like, oh man, it's so nice to see one of these that's, not molested and ruined and just completely modded to heck. And I was like, well, I do hope to mod it someday, and at the time I was just kind of a broke 22-year-old, so I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, I ended up working for them, and I think a lot of it ended up having to do with that I owned an NSX. And so that was pretty funny and a really fun experience. You know, a lot of things. So yeah, over my ownership, you know, I could say it started when I was about 14 years old. You know, I was a Gran Turismo kid, you know, grew up in that era, and you know, the NSX for me was always like the poster car, the dream car, and something to aspire. And in 2009, you know, I was 22 years old, and I was looking at them, and I was like, you know, I've owned several MR2s by that point, SW20s, and you know, which were known as the poor man's NSX. And I was like, well, you know, I've owned, I think at the time it was like 5 or 6. And it was like, well, you know, I've done a lot of the poor man's NSX. Now maybe it's time. And, you know, I had the hardtop turbo model, which was one of the most desirable models they made. And I got rid of that and everything for the MR2 and decided, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And what ended up happening is, you know, just as they say, is the rest is history. But I mean, you know, it took a lot, and it took a lot of sacrifice, because I've never really, you know, I'm not some tech guy or, you know, CEO or anything. I've always been mostly just a mechanic, and, you know, wages are wages, you know, they are what they are. And, you know, I've had to, you know, in the beginning when I had a loan on the car, you know, it was always making sure that that car had, you know, I had the money for the payment, and I had this and I had that, and it was very stressful at times, you know, where it just barely made it, you know. And insurance for 22 on a NSX, you know, while not terrible, wasn't, you know, inexpensive either. And how I got the NSX is actually kind of a funny story. How I ended up in an NSX is a funny story. While, yes, 14 years old, it was my dream car, I always thought it was out of reach. So I never really looked into it too much. And I was kind of getting over all of the work and maintenance my MR2 turbo was causing me, and I was looking into something new. And I've always loved the S2000s. And at the time, 08, 09, they had them brand new in the dealers. And I was like, all right, cool. And I went and looked not just at any S2000, but at an 2009 S2000 CR Black. And I had looked at everything, and I had said, you know, I can afford the payment. They drew up, my credit was good at the time, like everything was awesome. It was sign on the dotted line time. And when it came time to sign, they handed me the contract. I looked at it, and I was just like, hey, give me 1 minute. You know, it was a 5-year term, you know, back before these crazy 7-year terms. And for me, I was like, give me 1 minute. And I did something I have never done before or since. And I called my insurance company, and I said, hey, which at the time I think was Geico. And I said, hey, how much is this going to cost me if I'm at the dealer, I'm about to buy this car. What's this going to look like? And I think at the time my payment would have been like $480, just under $500 a month. And my payment monthly for car insurance at that time would have been like $580, $550, something. It was absolutely absurd. And I was like, dude, that's more than I'm paying for the car. Like, I can't do that. And I was like, did you guys make a mistake? Like, what's going on? And they were like, no. And I said, you know what? All right, well, that sealed it for me. Like, I just couldn't spend $1,000 a month to have this car. And you know, so then I left that dealership. I was really downtrodden. I was really not happy. I was really upset, you know, like, dang, I was ready to go. I was, you know, they let me test drive it, everything. And I was going to spend, you know, I think out the door, it was close to $60,000, you know, which now for a CR, you know, is nothing. But, you know, at the time it was a lot of money. And you know, today I don't think I'd be able to spend 60 grand. But, you know, I was like, okay, you know, I was bummed, but I said, okay, what else can I do? What's the next best? And, you know, lo and behold, you know, I had a lightning moment, a eureka moment where I said, wow, you know what? I know NSXs are incredibly cheap right now. And that's always been what I wanted. I love mid-engine. I love Honda. I love everything that the NSX is. It's been my dream car since I was, you know, a teeny tot. But it's almost half the price as the S2000 I was going to buy. So I was very excited about that and just said, wow, I can have the better car in my opinion and spend a lot less. So the search began. I was looking for a black, a white, or a silver, and I really wanted the black top. And at the time when I was looking, the trend was everyone had done full body color on the cars, which I really didn't like. I really liked that black top. So for me, that was a big deal breaker on a couple of white cars and like 1 or 2 silver cars. I spotted this exact car down in San Diego at a used car dealership, an exotic used car dealership. You know, they had Porsches and you know, everything else, and it was just one of those like places that gives you a used car salesman vibe. And you know, looking back on it now, you know, at the time I was 22, I didn't know any better, but he definitely took advantage of me and did some things that were super shady and definitely not legal at the time. But I didn't know any better, and I ended up in the car, so I kind of just let it go. A few years later, I was like, whatever, it's no use crying over it. But that's how I ended up in the car. Is I came, I checked it out, and they let me test drive it, and you know, he did his sleazy used car salesman pitch, and that was it. And so I drove it home, and I was really excited about that. And at the time, I was working for Tilton Engineering in Buellton, California, and I was managing the repair department. Really enjoy those guys, really great. And they had mentioned, hey, you know, we used to make stuff for that car. We don't make it anymore because the car's so old. And I was like, yeah, I get it, you know, but hopefully I thought I could pull some employee strings and end up, you know, getting some parts remade. But that never ended up happening until many, many years later. So yeah, everyone at my work was like, wow, like, I can't believe you bought one. Like, who gave you credit? Blah, 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 all sorts of stuff. But it was really interesting. It was a fun experience for me, and it was a good learning experience. And I had no idea the journey just buying this car was going to lead me to and lead me on. And you know, it's funny that it's gone to this crazy extreme. You know, I'm driving my car currently on a mountain road. I'm driving my Acura NSX that I bought 16 years ago through the mountains of Japan. Had you told me that when I bought it, I would have thought you were crazy. I would have been like, there's no way that's gonna happen. Like, yeah, of course, in my mind I thought, yeah, that would be cool, and that was, you know, but the reality of it just is so daunting and so far-fetched that you look at it this way, like, just I wouldn't have believed you as much as I would have wanted to. And that's what I find super amusing, is that, you know, this has been such a crazy story that I've been specializing in these cars for 16 years now. I've been working on them. I've done all sorts of stuff. I've developed tools and parts, and you name it, and a reputation in the community. It's been such a wild ride, you know, and I've really enjoyed letting people experience the car and helping them and get the most out of their NSX and spread the love. You know, I really have enjoyed it so much. You know, this has just been so much more than just a car, and there's so few people that understand that except car people. Like, you know, especially now with the values having gone through the roof the way they have, people look at me and they say, well, when are you going to sell it? You know, blah, 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 all this other stuff. And I don't have an answer for them, because there's nothing, through everything that I've been through, there's just nothing that excites me the same, you know, gives me that purpose. And I have so much connection to this very specific car that I can't imagine not having it. You know, yeah, at the end of the day, it's a car, and I could replace it if I had to, and I know that. But it's a huge part of who I am, and where and what I've gotten in life, and why I'm here, and that's a really unique thing. And that was one of the big deciding factors for me as to why I shipped the car to Japan versus just selling it and buying another one. The connection I have with this car is extremely deep and thorough. I have seen every panel. I have taken out everything that you see in this car: doors, hood, bonnet, fenders, trunk, engine, transmission. I've rebuilt the transmission. It's got new timing belt, water pump, like all new coolant hoses. I've rebuilt the evap box. Like, this car, I know inside and out. I mean, I still have interior pieces missing and getting work done, but in general, this is my car, and it really is nice to have it. And I've been through so much, and you know, I think we've done, it's got 139,751 miles on it right now, and I've done over 30,000 track miles, and it still just keeps ticking and it keeps going, and I absolutely cannot imagine not having it. And that is going to really, I hope one day I pass this car on to somebody who appreciates it and loves it as much as I do. And that's a huge thing for me. But, you know, I digress. It's been, you know, so that's kind of the story of how I got the car and what it's about for me. The other thing I will say is that, you know, what's done to it. And that's probably another, I mean, I guess that's a much quicker story. You know, it has the JRZ 3-ways, or had up until the MITA suspension went in, which the JRZs will go back in with Swift springs, 10K front, 8K rear, same spring rates that we're running right now. I have changed almost every single, you know, I changed the transmission. So I built from scratch a 97 to 99 spec 6-speed instead of the 5 speeds that we have. And I have an OS Geiken differential with a 4.4 final drive in it. Hold on. NSX, NA1, NSX Type R shift lever with the MITA custom shift lever that allows for left-hand drive. I obviously have a different steering wheel, Type S, with the Workspell quick disconnect. I have a track wheel that I use, a Momo Mod 88, I think, with another Workspell quick disconnect hub. So, you know, I have a couple different holding buttons. Right now, the car has Tecno Magnesio wheels, so a very old school Italian wheel brand that used to make very specific wheels for the NSX. Very light, very strong, track proven. Something that fits my build very well. Up front, I have a Dolly Racing sway bar, 25 mil or 1 inch sway bar. It's a really good sway bar. I've gotten a lot of front end stability out of it. It's just the problem I find now is that the rear end is too stable. So I need to change some things in the rear of the car to make it want to rotate more and do that. And as I'm driving up the mountain road here, you know, I gotta say, I mean, yeah, I'm not like attacking corners, and yeah, I'm doing my own stuff, but the MITA suspension's just eating it up, especially with these spring rates. Like, I'm going for it, slid it real nice, was able to catch it, you know, no big deal. So that was all right. You know, I'm fairly impressed with it so far, and I definitely think anybody who buys it will be incredibly satisfied with their purchase. So yeah, I absolutely have nothing really bad to say about these, and they are definitely a lot quieter on the road and livable, more livable than my JRZs were ever. And you know, when I bought the car, like I said, I'll go back on the story a little bit going into my mods. When I have owned this car for 16 years, and for 10 years, I basically kept it stock. I didn't have the wing, I didn't have the suspension, I didn't even really have the wheels. I had a bunch of stock wheels that had, you know, different rubber for different occasions. And I drove the absolute hell out of it. I got the car up maintenance-wise, but other than that, you know, I didn't do any mods. The car didn't really need any. Like, the biggest mod for me that the US cars need is the gearing. The US gearing for the 5-speed is just garbage. It's too big, it's too long, and unless you're making 450 or more horsepower, it's just not worth it. You just can't use it. And so that's kind of where I'm at with it, is like, you know, if you plan on driving like this, short little mountain roads, like, yeah, you got to at least have the JDM Type R gearing with the final drive. If you're doing more spirited stuff, probably want a Geiken or a Wave Track or something that helps the diff work a little better. Because yeah, the factory stuff just, it's good, but the US gearing, you just don't get to use the power band. And that's a big issue for me. Like, third gear goes to over 120 miles an hour, and that's just ridiculous. You know, that's just my opinion on it. That's my biggest that's what I say is the biggest shortcoming of the car. And I think most people would agree. I think everybody that says the NSX is underpowered would probably change their minds if they drove one that was geared properly. So the right size wheel with the right gearing, which is either the 6-speed or the JDM5 with a 423, I think everybody would change their mind. And yeah, I think the power is definitely more than enough. And even my car with basically stock power, when it had headers, no cats, on racetrack only, and a muffler, it put down 292 on a hub dyno, on a Dynapack dyno, and that was terrific. And that was more than I needed to outrun most anything except R35 GTR and a GT2 and GT3 Porsches. Everything else I could keep up with at my local tracks, which were Sears Point, Chuckwalla, and Thunderhill. You know, something like Big Willow, I ran Big Willow. It was one of the last tracks I ran in this car stateside, and you know, it doesn't quite have enough horsepower to really do that track justice. But I mean, that's not a really great track to be doing anyway, in my opinion. To me, there's far better tracks in California, and even then, I was still able to compete with like a Shelby GT350, like brand new at the time. So it was like 2023 or 22, I can't remember now, but it was a newer car, and so it had, you know, 500 plus horsepower, I imagine. I fought a ZL1 Camaro, you know, at Chuckwalla, and that's a much more suitable track for the NSX. And you know, he walked away from me at any given tiny straightaway, but I was banging on his back door, you know, braking zone, corner entry, and mid corner all day. And so I really think that this car is an amazing teacher as much as it is a performance car. It's a upscale momentum car. You really got to know how to keep it. You really got to know what you're doing, and you got to respect it. Mid-engine, yeah, the slides are definitely correctable, and there's no big issues. But if you don't know what you're doing, this car will bite you, and I think that's a reality. And that's something I actually enjoy about, you know, the early cars and the fun performance cars. It's like the AP1. I prefer the AP1 over the AP2 because it's a driver's car. The edge is ragged, and if you get it wrong and you don't know what you're doing, the car will bite you back. And to me, that's actually a lot of fun, because it teaches you. And when you get to that level with another car, you'll be a lot more confident because you'll have the skills that you need to handle it without relying on electronic nannies and stuff like that. So really, that's kind of how I view the NSX. So for me, the biggest mod is, yeah, the gearing. That needs to change. Put on a good set of pads and brake lines, you know, some good braided brake lines, and it's good to go. It doesn't need much, and obviously good rubber. But yeah, I mean, I did it in even the stock 15s, 16s, and I was able to really push the car to the limit on just those. Like, I'd be walking away from other guys in NSXs that are boosted with big brake kits and you name it, you know, and I don't have ABS. So yeah, I guess we'll go back to the mods on the car. So my whole mantra with modding this car has been NA, lightweight, and just keep it simple. You know, I'm trying to do a very lightweight build because I know from personal experience that the lighter the car is, the better it does everything. Brake, stop, go, turn, you name it. And right now, this car weighs in at like 2,650 pounds, about 1,300 kilo. which is 300 to 400 pounds lighter than a factory NSX. And I'm trying to lose more weight. I really am. I'm trying to find more places to lose weight in a way that doesn't make the car annoying. Like, I still have air conditioning, I still have carpet and a degree of sound deadening. I've removed all the tar and a lot of stuff that does make sound deadening, but the car's still totally reasonable to drive. I can have a conversation with my passenger while just driving down the highway. Could it be quieter? Of course, yes, but that's not really the point of this car. I really enjoy the music that the C30 makes. It makes great music. And yeah, so I want to hear it a little more, especially over a factory car. So that's what I did. And on top of all that, you know, I've taken off weight here, there, everywhere that I could find it. Don't have ABS, but I will be putting ABS into the car here very soon. That's my next big mod. I've replaced about 85 to 90% of all the bolts in the car with custom titanium bolts, grade 5 titanium that I've designed and made exactly, spec'd out exactly like the Honda bolt, so that, yeah, like, we come in and if you know this car, if like I do, or if anybody who knows this car works on it says, oh wow, like, you know, this job takes a 17, 19, a 10, those ratchets, those millimeters, that muscle memory still works for me. And that was really important, is to have hex flanged head, you know, with the right shank. And I did tighten up the tolerances a little bit. If you look at Honda factory bolts, they're not made, you know, an M6 is like, can vary a couple tenths in diameter, and mine are a little more strict than that. But other than that, I mean, yeah, it's pretty much ready to go. And I will say, yeah, as I'm having this conversation, as I'm talking to you and driving, I'm just eating up corners. I'm just eating them up. I wish you could feel what I'm feeling here, but the response, the feedback is so good from these coilovers. And I'm basically doing this all one-handed, relaxing on a two-way road with other people. And one-handed, just enjoying life. Yeah, it's awesome. I gotta say, this is just great. You know, what are my future plans for the car? Well, future plans, I have at Applied Motorsports, I have a 3.6 liter engine that has been waiting to go together for several years, and a lot of the wait has just been money. But the idea is to build the ultimate NA NSX, and that's what I'm hoping will happen, hopefully this year. We'll see how that goes. Obviously, I'll keep the channel updated, and hopefully everybody roots me and roots me on, or spurs me on and gives me that positive reinforcement that I maybe need sometimes. I do hope I will be putting up dyno numbers and everything else. I'll show everybody everything. But yeah, I'm very excited. After that, you know, there's always stuff to do. I do want to figure out a way to run slightly wider front tires, like a 235 would be great, and then like a 295. So I'll be needing new wheels. I'll be going with MITA wheels, forged aluminum, really nice. And I might do a couple extra sets of wheels just for fun, because it's nice to have extra sets of wheels. So that's going to be cool. So extra sets of wheels. I'm still playing with suspension. I'm still developing some aero parts, like a front splitter, under tray, fuel tank cover. I'm developing all of that and building it myself. So I'm very excited about that. And to make sure that it actually adds a performance value. Not just there for looks or there to look cool, which I hope it does need to look cool too, but it does need to work. So that stuff is all things that are on the back burner, things that are coming up in the future. So yeah, that's kind of the NSX story. That's what I have done to it. I'm trying to think what else. You know, I've rebuilt everything. You know, the biggest mod on this car has been, I guess, the newest things that are coming is I have headers from RFY coming. I have GT lightweight, Titech exhaust, ready to go back on, which I really like that muffler. A lot of the reason I like it is because it's so light, but it also sounds really awesome. I may eventually decide I want my own exhaust muffler setup, catback, and do my own thing, but I haven't quite gotten to that point yet. That's probably further down the line. So we'll see once I get to that bridge, if we cross it. But yeah, that's really kind of the plan with the car, and I'm really excited, and I've just been enjoying driving right now. I've just been driving around, and as I talk to you, telling you this story. Oh, another thing that I have is I have the NSX rack repair quick ratio rack, which I do really like, especially on the circuit. I really like it. Here on these like super narrow, small mountain roads where you're doing, 90, 120, 180 sometimes degree corners, it can be a little heavy. But on the circuit, it is just awesome, and I love it. And I wrote a whole giant review on this part, and I posted it on NSX Prime. So if you are interested in how I feel about this, you can always look that up. I think Charles and formerly Matt Lindsay did a great job with this part, and Quaif, obviously they make great parts. So I say if you have a left-hand drive and you do really like that response and that quickness, it's a really great mod for that. And yeah, I'm just cruising, man. I'm just enjoying this drive right now. And with that, I'm going to bring this week's episode to a close so I can focus solely on the road and enjoying that time. I hope you enjoyed the backstory of the NSX and a little bit of my backstory and a little bit of breadcrumbs on what I plan to do with the car in the future. If you did enjoy this video, please hit that like button and subscribe button. Leave any comments that you might have, and I will see you during the next episode. Thank you again so much.